With the Switch 2 likely coming this year, Nintendo has to decide what to do with the future of Switch Online. They can choose to update the service, completely scrap it for something new, or just leave it as it is and transfer it over. Today we're going to be taking a look at what's next for Nintendo Switch Online. Is it GameCube, DS, Wii, 3DS, other Sega systems? Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to be any of these, so stick around and let me disappoint you for the next 5 minutes. As discussed in one of my previous videos, see the link in the description. In the past, whenever Nintendo has brought a game up to the Switch from the GameCube, it's been a full-on remaster, with either near full or full retail pricing. And if Nintendo can get full price, there's no reason for them not to do that. After all, they're driven by money. And with a bit of light dusting up, a lot of these old games hold up extremely well today. If you think about Metroid Prime Remastered, Pikmin 1 and 2, Baten Kaitos, and Thousand Year Door, all of them still play really well and look really good on modern hardware, especially with the changes the remasters make. And if you think about it, they probably deserve full price for those games anyway. And then you come to the issue of file sizes. If we take a look at the average file size for the systems already on Nintendo Switch Online, we have NES coming in at 128 kilobytes, SNES around 30 megabytes, Game Boy and Game Boy Color around 4 megabytes, Game Boy Advance around 32, and N64 coming in at 64, funnily enough. But if we look at GameCube, average file size goes up to 1.2 gigabytes. Let's think about that. You can fit every single N64 game on a single 32 gigabyte Switch game card. How many GameCubes can you fit? 26, and that would be all you had room for. Now obviously there are options, including compression, which can bring the file sizes down to about 400 megabytes per game. Generally what this conveys is that with the GameCube generation, the games just become much larger and much more complex, and therefore less suitable for an online subscription service like NSO. And my verdict is, maybe. Part 2, Wii games. Following on from the GameCube, this one's quite easy as well. The file sizes are even bigger, coming in at 5 gigabytes per game, and there's an even bigger stumbling block with Wii games, motion controls. Yes, the Switch has motion controls, and presumably the Switch 2 will have as well, but I think on the part of the developer it takes considerable effort to make sure that all the functionality of the Wii game matches up with the motion controls of the Switch. Just think about Skyward Sword. As with GameCube, they're already porting remastered versions of Wii titles up, charging full price as well. Just look at Kirby Deluxe and Skyward Sword. And my verdict for Wii games on Nintendo Switch Online? Definitely not. Now we come to the Nintendo DS, which has a much more suitable average file size, coming in at around 30 megabytes, which would allow a large library on NSO. The Switch does also have touchscreen functionality, and presumably the Switch 2 will have that as well. You can even imagine them providing an official stylus in the same way they've sold official NSO, N64 and SNES controllers. Please make that happen, Nintendo. But the obvious glaring issue is the format of emulation. How are you going to display both screens? You can do it side to side or top to bottom, or as some emulators do it, toggleable, is that a word? Where one screen is big and the other is either tiny or absent, and you can switch between the two at will. No way is perfect in my opinion. And then there are other issues like the lack of a microphone, which was crucial to some Nintendo DS games, or like the fact that, like the GameCube and the Wii, Nintendo have already been porting DS games for full price onto the Switch. I won't be holding my breath over DS games anytime soon, and my verdict is, probably not. 3DS is very similar, although the file sizes are bigger than DS, and you have the same compatibility issues with the dual screens, but even more because you lose 3D functionality, which was a big selling point for a lot of the 3DS games. And once again, 3DS games are being ported at full price up to the Switch already. So what about something else? Something like Sega? Well, NSO already has Mega Drive games, so it's entirely possible Nintendo might delve into another of Sega's libraries, but each of them has their own issues in my opinion. The Saturn isn't compelling enough, although there are some good games on the Saturn. We already have that generation covered with N64. The Dreamcast has the same problems as the GameCube. The file sizes are too big, the ports are worth money on their own, especially as we've just had recent announcements of remakes of things like Crazy Taxi, for example. So I don't think it's going to come from Sega. So what else could Nintendo do? They could modernize it and bring in streaming. They could and probably will continue to fold in DLC, as they did with Mario Kart, Animal Crossing and Splatoon. Or, and this would be my preferred option, they could revert back to a virtual console style system where they sell old titles for reduced prices through the eShop. I don't see them doing that anytime soon, but that would be good because it would bring ownership back into the hands of the people who own the consoles. Or ultimately, and I think this is what they will do, they can leave Nintendo Switch Online mostly as it is and transition it to the Switch 2. So the results are in and it's not looking good for the future of NSO. None of these systems look like a good fit. But now that I've made this video, I'm sure Nintendo will be announcing any minute that there's a Switch 2 called Super Switch, and as part of the launch lineup, NSO is receiving GameCube and Dreamcast games. Well, one can dream anyway, can't they?